They mocked the girl in camouflage at school until a Black Hawk touchdown on the football turf changed everything. The morning sun cast long shadows across Jefferson High School's parking lot as Emma Rodriguez stepped out of her father's old pickup truck. She wore the same thing she wore every day: military-style camouflage cargo pants, a plain green t-shirt, and well-worn combat boots that had seen better days. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail, no makeup touched her face, and she carried a faded backpack that looked like it had survived a war zone. As she walked toward the school entrance, whispers followed her like a shadow. Groups of students huddled together, pointing and giggling. Emma kept her eyes straight ahead, her jaw set firm, her shoulders squared. She had learned long ago that showing weakness only made things worse. "Look, it's Army Girl," sneered Madison Pierce, the most popular girl in school, surrounded by her usual entourage of perfectly styled friends. Madison's designer jeans probably cost more than Emma's entire wardrobe. "Does she think we're going to invade the cafeteria or something?" The group erupted in laughter. Emma's fingers tightened around her backpack strap, but she didn't slow down, didn't give them the satisfaction of a reaction. "Maybe she's waiting for her mommy to come rescue her," another voice called out. This one came from Tyler Jenkins, the quarterback of the football team, leaning against his expensive sports car with his teammates. "Oh, wait, I forgot. Her mom's too busy playing soldier to care about her kid." The words stung more than Emma would ever admit. She pushed through the double doors and into the hallway, where the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead and the smell of floor polish mixed with teenage cologne and perfume. Her first class was English, and she slipped into her usual seat at the back corner of the room, where she could see everything but draw minimal attention. Mrs. Patterson, the English teacher, was one of the few adults who treated Emma with genuine kindness. She never asked invasive questions or made Emma feel different. She just taught her class and appreciated that Emma always turned in quality work on time. "Good morning, everyone," Mrs. Patterson said, writing the day's agenda on the whiteboard. "So today we're going to discuss the concept of heroism in literature. What makes someone a hero? Is it their actions, their intentions, or something else entirely?" Emma listened quietly as her classmates offered various opinions. Most of them had shallow answers, talking about superheroes and movie characters. She wanted to say that real heroes were people who sacrificed everything, who put others before themselves, who stood watch in dangerous places so others could sleep safely at night. But she kept quiet. Anything she said would just give them more ammunition. At lunch, Emma sat alone at a table near the back of the cafeteria. She unpacked the simple sandwich she'd made that morning, peanut butter and jelly on wheat bread. Around her, the cafeteria buzzed with conversation, laughter, and the clatter of trays, so she was an island of silence in a sea of social activity. "Is this seat taken?" a voice asked. Emma looked up to see Marcus Chen, a quiet kid from her chemistry class. He was tall and lanky, with glasses that were always sliding down his nose. Emma shook her head, and Marcus sat down. They didn't talk much, but his presence was comforting. Marcus was one of the few people who didn't treat her like a freak. They ate in companionable silence, occasionally commenting on homework or an upcoming test. Halfway through lunch, Madison and her friends walked past their table. Madison accidentally bumped Emma's arm, causing her to drop half her sandwich on the floor. "Oops, sorry, soldier girl," Madison said with a fake sweet smile. "Maybe you should learn some coordination. Yeah, or is that what happens when your mom abandons you to play war?" Emma's face flushed red, but she bent down calmly to pick up the fallen sandwich. She threw it away and sat back down, her appetite completely gone. "Why do you let them treat you like that?" Marcus asked quietly. Emma shrugged. "Fighting back just makes it worse. I've tried." What Marcus didn't know, what none of them knew, was why Emma dressed the way she did. It wasn't a fashion statement or teenage rebellion. Every morning when Emma put on those combat boots, She was trying to feel closer to her mother, Captain Sarah Rodriguez, who was deployed somewhere in the Middle East with the Army. Emma didn't know exactly where, just that it was dangerous, and her mother couldn't tell her much. The camouflage pants had actually belonged to her mother during her early military days, and Emma had found them in a box in the attic, along with old photographs and letters. Wearing them made her feel like her mother was nearby, like she was wrapped in a protective embrace even though thousands of miles separated them. Emma's father, David Rodriguez, worked 2 jobs to keep their small house and put food on the table. The military salary helped, but it wasn't enough, especially with medical bills from Emma's grandmother, who lived with them and needed special care. David left before Emma woke up most mornings and came home after she was asleep. Their conversations happened through notes left on the kitchen counter and brief text messages. The afternoons were the hardest. Emma would go home to an empty house except for her grandmother, who was kind but often confused, sometimes forgetting Emma's name or thinking she was someone from decades past. Emma would make dinner, help her grandmother eat, do her homework, and wait for a phone call that might never come. Her mother tried to call when she could, but the time difference in military operations made it unpredictable. Sometimes weeks would go by without hearing her voice. Emma kept a calendar in her room where she marked off the days until her mother's deployment was supposed to end. 7 months, 12 days, and counting. At school, the mockery continued daily. Someone had started calling her G.I. Jane, and the nickname had spread like wildfire. In the hallways, students would salute her mockingly or make explosion sounds when she walked by. In gym class, when they played dodgeball, Emma was always the primary target, now with balls flying at her from all directions while the teacher conveniently looked the other way. The worst was social media. Emma didn't have any accounts herself, but Marcus had shown her some of the posts. There were memes with her face photoshopped onto military scenes with cruel captions. There was a fake account called Combat Boot Emma that posted jokes about her. The posts got hundreds of likes and shares. One particularly difficult day came in October. Emma's history class was studying World War II, and Mr. Brennan asked if anyone had family members who had served in the military. Emma slowly raised her hand, one of only 3 students who did. "Tell us about them, Emma," Mr. Brennan encouraged. "My mother is currently deployed with the Army," Emma said quietly, "and my grandfather served in Vietnam." The classroom fell silent for a moment, then Tyler Jenkins spoke up from the back. "Is she even any good? Or is she just there for diversity quotas?" The class gasped. Even Mr. Brennan looked shocked. "That's completely inappropriate, Tyler. Apologize immediately." Tyler rolled his eyes. "Whatever. Sorry." But the damage was done. Emma felt her eyes burning with unshed tears, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of them. After class, Mr. Brennan pulled Emma aside. "I'm sorry about that, Emma. What Tyler said was disrespectful and ignorant. Your mother's service is honorable, and you should be proud of her." Emma nodded, not trusting herself to speak. That night, lying in bed, Emma finally let herself cry. She pulled out her phone and looked at her favorite picture of her mother, as taken before deployment. Captain Sarah Rodriguez stood in full uniform, proud and strong, with her arm around a smiling Emma. They looked so happy. Emma couldn't remember the last time she'd felt that happy. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Her heart leaped, hoping it might be her mother finding a way to reach out. But when she opened it, her heart sank. "Hey, Combat Barbie. Why don't you and your wannabe soldier mom just leave town? Nobody wants you here." Emma deleted the message and turned off her phone. Tomorrow would be another day of the same treatment, and the day after that, and the day after that. She had 500 more days marked on her calendar, 500 more days of enduring this alone. The next morning, Emma stood in front of her closet, looking at the few civilian clothes she owned. Jeans. a couple of regular t-shirts. For a moment, she considered wearing them, blending in, making herself less of a target. Her hand reached for a plain blue shirt. Then she stopped. Changing her clothes wouldn't change who she was or why she wore them. It wouldn't bring her mother home. It wouldn't make the other students respect her. It would just mean they had won, that they had broken her spirit. Emma pulled on her camouflage pants and combat boots. She tied her hair back in its usual ponytail. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw her mother's determination in her own eyes. At school that day, the principal, Mrs. Henderson, made an announcement during morning assembly. Jefferson High would be hosting a career day in 2 weeks, where various professionals would come to speak about their jobs. But Emma sat through the announcement with little interest. She knew no one would invite anyone from the military. During lunch, Marcus showed Emma a flyer about an upcoming football game. It was going to be a big event, the homecoming game against their school's biggest rival. The whole town would be there. "Are you going?" Marcus asked. Emma shrugged. "Probably not. Not really my thing." "Yeah, me neither," Marcus admitted. "But my parents are making me go. School spirit and all that." What neither of them knew was that this homecoming game would change everything. That 2 weeks away, on that football field, Emma's world would turn completely upside down in a way she never could have imagined. For now, though, she just had to survive one day at a time, one mocking comment at a time, one lonely lunch at a time, and one night in an empty house at a time. Emma packed up her lunch trash and headed to her next class, her boots echoing on the tile floor, her chin held high despite everything. She was her mother's daughter, after all, and soldiers didn't quit, no matter how hard the battle became. The following days blurred together in a familiar pattern of isolation and endurance. Emma went through the motions, attending classes, doing homework, taking care of her grandmother, and waiting for phone calls that came too rarely. She had become an expert at being invisible while simultaneously being the most visible target in school. In chemistry class, she worked on experiments with Marcus, who had become her only real friend. They had an easy partnership, both comfortable with silence and focused on their work. But Marcus never asked about the bullying or why Emma dressed the way she did. He simply accepted her, which was more valuable than he probably realized. "You're really good at this," Marcus observed one day as Emma precisely measured chemicals for their experiment. "You should consider studying something in science, maybe medicine." Emma had never really thought about her future beyond getting through each day. College seemed like a distant dream, something for other people whose lives weren't complicated by deployments and financial struggles. "Maybe," she said noncommittally. The truth was, Emma had once dreamed of following in her mother's footsteps and joining the military. But lately, watching how people reacted to her mother's service, seeing the mockery and disrespect, she wondered if it was worth it. Did her mother know how Emma was being treated because of her career choice? Would she still think it was worth it? These were questions Emma couldn't ask in their brief, precious phone calls. Those calls were reserved for, "I love you and I'm proud of you and stay strong." There was never enough time for the complicated questions, the doubts, the loneliness. The week before homecoming arrived with an unusual buzz of activity at Jefferson High. Posters covered every available wall space, announcing the big game against the Riverside Ravens. The cheerleaders practiced their routines during lunch, their energetic chants echoing through the hallways. The football team walked around like conquering